to record. Thank you, Kay. So you guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 1:04. I want to give you some time on your Monday. This programming for today is for the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. It's the 23-24 grant funding opportunity for local commissions. So this training is a technical training for you to review how to submit your application. And we have a full agenda for you on all the things that we're going to cover during this hour. We hope that we can give you some time back in your day and be very thorough in this presentation. But we will continue to let people log on. So if you guys can use the chat feature to ask your questions, please do that. We will have this recording made available to you all at the end of the day. Could be late today, could be as early as tomorrow morning. Just depends on how long it takes to download all the information and get it up on our website, but it will be made available to you all. So our presenters today, I am Tiffany Bartow, Deputy Director of Operations for the Commission. Jen DeGrossa is our Grants Manager for the Commission, and Stephen Maestas is our Contracts and Budgeting Analyst. So he is going to be your best friend through this process with helping assist with the budget and also getting you together with your agreement. Again, for housekeeping, all of the attendees have been muted throughout this presentation, and we ask that you use the chat feature to submit any questions of a general nature. I know certain commissions may be smaller, some are really large, so your individual questions that pertain to your commission, we'd love for you to submit to the grants inbox, and we'll be able to schedule some time to go over any individual questions for your local commission at that time. Next slide, please. So the agenda for today, we are going to do an overview of the Women's Recovery Response and this grant funding opportunity. That includes the type of applicant, the eligibility, our website access and how to download the application. Jen is going to take us through a full walkthrough of the actual application. So that includes all your app information, the funding opportunity, the cost sheet, some ineligible costs, and your submission requirements. And then the proposal review and selection covers your scoring process and your required documents for this funding. And then a timeline of activities, your progress reports and expenditures, and some key FAQs. I will let you guys know that we've had other trainings. So Friday, we hosted the very first training, and that was for new grantees. So if you are here and you are brand new wanting to take a look at what it's like for a brand new applicant, that training was on Friday, and we have it available, the same presentation available for you, because it's a little different if you're a brand new grantee. It's available up on our website now for if you're a brand new applicant. And we changed this up because it's very different from you being a new applicant to a renewal, which we had earlier. And then local commissions is something very, very different. So we're going to cover some different material here than you would be for a new grantee, not necessarily a local commission. Next slide, please. So if you don't know anything about the commission, I'm here, Henry, I just want to address you, yes, really quickly. You probably should watch the Friday recording because it sounds like you may be a nonprofit for San Diego Food Bank, and that'd be more applicable for you on the last Friday. So you can, if you stay here if you'd like to, but you can take a look at the recording that we have and then send me a note if you'd like, and we'll be able to discuss any questions. I think Jen just popped it in the chat for you, Henry. The commission, for more than 50 years, has been identified to work and eliminate inequities in state laws, practices, and conditions that affect California's women and girls. We are an established state agency with 17 appointed commissioners in 1965, and the commission regularly assesses gender equity in health, safety, employment, education, and equal representation in the military and media. The commission provides leadership through research, policy and program development, education, outreach, and collaboration, advocacy, and strategic partnerships. So we're happy that you all are here today, because this is our work here to make sure that you all are doing your very best in the local commission to outreach and advocate for women and girls throughout the state of California. Next slide, please. So this grant funding opportunity for the commission, we have up to $5 million in grant funding, and it will help support statewide or local nonprofits with an established history of programming or services that directly support and align the mission of women and girls. And that's to provide direct services that support immediate needs for women throughout an economic security lens. Also for local government entities for the purpose of establishing new commissions and other grant-funded activities that directly support and align the mission of Women and Girls Commission. And in here, we're looking for you to improve your representation for all women's voices throughout California. And lastly, This grant funding opportunity is for local women's commissions who are established within a city or a county government, and that's to engage and strengthen existing local women's commissions to ultimately inform the statewide women's economic recovery blueprint. So this is what this grant funding opportunity is for this time around. Some of you may have been a part of the last grant funding that we had last season, which actually we're still in. It's going to end next month, but this is our Women's Recovery Response number 2. Next slide, please. So types of applicants here are all applicants going to fall into one of these categories. So a new applicant, which I just stated, which is for state and local nonprofit organizations or local government entities conducting grant funding activities. We have a new applicant. The renewal applicant is for those who are existing 22-23 grantees who took advantage of our last funding opportunity for statewide or local nonprofit governmental organizations in good standing who can apply for a second round. And we just had the renewal. If you're renewing your grant, we just had that previously at 11 a.m. So everyone here should be on this call because you are a local women's commission and you are new, trying to get your commission established in a city or county and a government that has not received prior funding from the commission before. Or you also may be a returning applicant with the city or county government that has received prior funding to the commission to establish a new commission or continue expanding your previously award efforts. So if you were just at our call a little while ago on renewing, there's a lot of information that we'll be covering in this local women's commission, but this is designed specifically for those who are establishing or in right now a local women's commission. Those are the 3 types of applicants for this funding opportunity. Next slide, please. So eligibility, all applicants who are eligible for this grant fund must be California-based only, and that is a statewide or local nonprofit, a local government entity, or a local women's commission that's established within a city or county government. So those are the 3 that we are accepting now, California-based, eligibility in the state of California. And for this training session, this should strictly be for local women's commissions that are established in the city or county government. Next slide, please. And I hand this over to Jen.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us. So this next part of the training, we're just going to go over the landing page for the website so you're familiar with how to find all the information on it, and then we'll walk through how to go through the application itself. So I think everyone on here at this point is probably familiar with the landing page. It's housed over here for the 23-24 recovery response round. The information about grantee support over here is super helpful because we've run into this question a lot. If you have any questions about whether you are eligible for granting under this funding opportunity, or if you can renew under this funding opportunity, etc., all of that should be fielded to grants@women.ca.gov. We're monitoring that inbox on an hourly basis, so we'll be able to get back to you with answers to any of your questions. Your actual application will be submitted to a different email address, so just keep in mind that those are 2 distinct emails for 2 distinct purposes, and we'll go over that a couple of times as well. Upcoming events and training. So this has just been adjusted this morning, not that long ago. On Friday, we conducted our technical assistance webinar for new applicants. So I think there's some folks on the line who are potentially new applicants who may have missed that training on Friday. So if you head back to our website over here where you were able to register, you'll see the link to the training that took place on Friday. It's the same format that we're doing here, but it specifically goes over the new application. And then for folks that maybe are joining us who are renewal grantees, that training was today at 11, so be sure to check back here. This will be replaced by the recorded training as well that we already did this morning. And then if anyone has to pop off earlier or was not able to attend, for those watching back later, the video will be here as well for this session as well. And this is just a reminder that all applications are due to the email inbox no later than Friday, February 17th at 4 p.m. The system will not be accepting applications after that, so please make sure you get applications in with plenty of time by the 4 p.m. cutoff on the 17th. And we'll go over continued dates over the course of this grant cycle. But the plan is to notify selected awardees March 17th through the 24th. And that will also include noticing for those folks who were not selected. And then April 3rd, the final grant awards will be announced. And then here, Change the World, April 3rd to March 31st. That's the period of performance for this second round of grant funding. So if you scroll down a little bit lower from the section that I just showed you on our landing page, you'll see the section. Some folks are still new applicants, so you would use the new application. Some are renewal applicants on the line, so that would be application number 2. But the purpose of this training is just to address local commissions, whether you're a new local commission trying to get established, or if you're already an established local commission who received funding from us last year and you're returning for another round of funding. You'll select this, application number 3, and that'll pop up a fillable PDF for you to use. Now I'm going to walk through the application itself, these 3 main areas, which is the applicant information section, the funding opportunity, your proposal and your budget narrative, the cost sheet template, and then we'll spend some time going over ineligible costs as well, because that question has come up frequently. Okay, can everyone see my screen? I'm sharing a local commission application screen. Yep, okay, good. Okay, so this is what you'll download when you hit that little 3rd button over there that I just showed you. This will pop up for you, and this is the actual fillable application. This is a reminder for you that I said a little earlier, questions should all be sent to grants@women.ca.gov. So if you get stumped on how to answer a question, if you don't know how to fill some section of the app out, just email us and we'll get back to you pretty quickly. If it's easy response, we'll kick back a response. If it's kind of a more iterative discussion that we need to have, we'll schedule a meeting with you in the upcoming days just so we can hash out any areas that are confusing. And then again, your submission of this application will go to local commissions@women.ca.gov. We'll go over that at the end of this presentation too. So I'll let you read for those of you who are getting familiarized with what we do here at the commission. There's a little bit of background information over here. I'm just admitting some more folks from the waiting room. There's a little background information on the commission here. And this is a reminder about eligibility. So because this is catered to local commission development, we are interested in local commissions who are already established with the city or county government, or in the cases where a commission has not been established, local government entities for the purpose of establishing commissions should be using this application. So the availability of funding information is important as well. We have funding available in amounts of $25,000 up to $250,000. The caveat is that for $250,000, you must be considered a re-granting organization. So in some cases, we do have some local commissions that are doing work developing their commission, but they're also turning around and re-granting to partner organizations on the ground. So if you are turning around and re-granting any portion of your budget to other local partners, you're eligible for up to $250,000. If you're not re-granting, the range for your application is $25,000 to $100,000. And here's again a reminder, applications are due by 4 p.m. Friday, February 17th. More information about the grant period, we'll go over that a little bit later, and more information about contact information if you have questions. So again, to recap, funds under this grant opportunity for those applying with this commission-focused application, you're either an existing local commission or you're interested in developing a new local commission at the city or county level. And under here, section 4, program requirements, please make sure to just read through all of these terms and conditions regarding conflict of interest, confidentiality, and labor code. You will be bound to all of those. And now we'll head to applicant information. So for this section, we for some folks, I don't anticipate this applying to a lot of organizations, but in the case you have a sponsor organization, you would also enter the contact information in these green areas. We want the information for the sponsored organization and the sponsor organization. Most cases, I don't think this will apply to a lot of folks on the line. In most cases, you're just a local government, a city or county. So you'll just enter all of the information under these white boxes. You can forego the green boxes altogether, unless you have a special circumstance. And you can always ask us too, if you have questions on how to fill that out. So the title of proposal, the type of organization you are, most of the folks on the line will be local governments. We'll need your primary contact information, phone, email, etc. And then here's the important part, the proposed amount. This is the total amount that you are requesting from the commission for the work that you plan to carry out. And again, I said this a little bit earlier, but if you are an intermediary organization who's going to be re-granting funds, you can apply for up to $250,000. Here's a little definition if you're looking to see if you are considered an intermediary organization. We can also answer other questions if you have kind of more nuanced niche questions about that. All other organizations are eligible to apply for up to $100,000. Okay, so section C, application type. This is where you will select if you are a new grant applicant. So if you are a local government interested in establishing a Women and Girls Commission, you would be a new grant applicant here. Or if you were not awarded funding, maybe you applied last year, but for whatever reason you weren't awarded, you're still considered a new grant applicant. And then over here for returning folks who were awarded in the last grant cycle for activities, you would be considered a renewal grant applicant. So you'll select this box over here. Community section right here. This should look familiar for those who applied last year for the funding opportunity. We ask you to list what county and city your organization serves currently. And then you'll see the addition of Senate District and Assembly District over here, which are new this year. And if you're not sure what Senate or Assembly District you're in, you can follow this little hyperlink below and plug in the location of your office, and that'll pop up the Senate and Assembly District for you to enter in. Section E asks how long has the applicant organization been in existence? So we just want a little history of how long you've been up and running. Or if you're new, you might have 0. You might be brand new. You might have not had a history. Then section F, please select if the applicant organization has received any grant funds from, and you'll enter if you've received funds from the state or federal government, a city or county government, other, which could include like private funds from a foundation, for example, or in some cases you may not have received any funding so far, and you could select this last one, that you have not received any grants to date. If you have received funding, we just ask you to enter information about what programs or what grants you were awarded for here. If you've been established for a really long time and you have a wide scope of funding that goes back like 20 years, we're not asking you to enter the whole life of your funding in this box. Just stick to maybe the most current active grants for us. This next one, section question G, does your organization hold an exemption status with the IRS? Most folks will not. Most of the folks on the line will be no, because you're a local government, so you can skip that. You'll just put no. Has the applicant organization ever been convicted of violating federal criminal law? Please answer yes or no there. Same for lawsuits within the last 5 years, yes or no. Same as any audit or monitoring findings. If you do have findings, please select the range, or if you don't have any findings, you'll select this first box. And then this section's pretty important. K, does your accounting system identify and track expenditures and receipt of program funds? We're looking for a yes or no. And if it's a no, please expand on how you would track funds. So especially for some of the fledgling organizations that are trying to get up and running, if you don't currently have a system in place, please make sure how you would plan to track expenditures. This is something that we will require you to report on a quarterly basis. So you do have to have some at least proposed mechanism in place for tracking expenditures and receipt of funding. Okay, the next section is the funding opportunity, and this is for, again, if you're a new grant applicant, you will have to fill out section A and A1. So that's this right here. And if you're not, then you can skip on down to section B. That'll be just applicable for renewal grantees. So if, let's see, we'll keep heading down here. This area of priorities is a key area that we're focusing on this year. And these are the measurable outcomes impacting women and girls. And these are the following areas that we're really looking at for proposals. And that includes improved access and affordability of child and or elder care services, increased utilization and uptake of safety net programs that offer services to support basic needs such as shelter, food, clothing, achieved reskilling, upskilling through accreditation, certification, or educational programs, and enhanced financial ability to grow economic security, assets, and wealth. So A1, again, this is if you are a new commission applicant. In 500 words or less, we'd like you to describe the needs of your community, the history and the purpose of your organization, and how funding from us will support the organization's ability to serve the identified target community. And then we also would like you to describe how you propose to use the grant funds to support the stated goal, and how funds will support the listed priorities directly above. So that's how your work may tie into these key areas above. And then lastly, we'd like you to describe in 500 words or less how the impact will be measured and how success will be achieved, and how you propose to increase impact for women and girls with this funding. So that'll all go in here for new applicants. Then we'll scroll down. So this is renewal applicants for any commissions who received funding from us last year. You will select one of these boxes. If you are requesting funds to support the continuation of the same grant awarded activities, so you were funded from us last year and you want to keep doing the great work that you were doing on the ground last year, select that box. If you maybe had some lessons learned from the last cycle of funding, or realized you have another area of need that you hadn't quite considered before, or you just uncovered something in the work that you did in the last grant cycle, you would select this box, requesting funds to support the expansion of your 22-23 grant activities. And then B1 is the narrative for renewals. So we'd like you to describe in 500 words how continuing your grant supports the provided goal and listed priorities above, and identify any improvements you would make to ongoing grant efforts if funded. And then again, if you're requesting an expansion, please describe how you propose to increase impact for women and girls with this funding. That'll go in that box. Now down here, section C, target populations, we'd like you to select all that apply, and this applies to your proposal itself. So, you know, women and girls throughout the state may be served by your organization as a whole, but if you can narrow it down a little bit to the populations targeted by this particular proposal, please do. You'll select any and all that apply from the checkable boxes over here. Section D, target communities. This asks for the specific counties and cities that you will impact under this grant. So we've had this a lot where organizations have statewide impact, but we'd like you to really narrow it down if you can for the work that will be done under this grant opportunity. There's only so many funds available, so I think in a lot of cases people are focusing more narrowly on a couple of counties, for example, versus statewide efforts because they're interested in making a bigger, more meaningful impact. So please be as specific as possible for counties and cities here. The next section for budget and budget narrative. So this should outline how your proposed budget will support the objectives listed in your proposal. So this ties basically the dollars that you're requesting to the work that you're wanting to do. They should all tie into each other. And this should also tie into the cost sheet summary that will go over just in a few minutes, but they all need to correlate. And you have 1,000 words for this section. Okay, so then the next area goes over cost sheets, and we've had a lot of questions on these, so we just wanted to spend a little bit of time going over this. We have seen some proposals historically where everything was sort of lumped in together. So you would see like $50,000 for staff. That was it. That was the line item proposed. And we want to see a lot more detail than that in your proposals. We'd like to see salaries listed out separately from benefits and from operating costs. It needs to be clear who's doing what and how much money you've allotted for them. And we'd also like you to identify folks by position, for example. You don't have to have their name in, plug their name in, like you may not have hired staff or staff changes, so that's not important. But for example, if you're gonna have like a communications director, that position can be entered into the budget, into the cost sheet, and that would be its own line item. And then maybe you would like to also tack on benefits for that position. That's its own line item as well. Everything should be delineated separately. And this is a friendly reminder for invoices, the invoicing section, that grantees must submit statements of expenditure with each progress report according to the scheduled due date. So that's a little bit new. I think returning grantees are used to just doing progress reports so far, but we'll ask for statements of expenditure moving forward with each quarterly progress report. Key dates are listed here. Those are also on our website. We are here. The technical assistance webinar for local commissions. Here's your reminder, applications are due on the 17th, no later than 4 p.m. We spoke about this a little bit, but the grant review period will be through March 13th. Notification period will be the 17th through the 24th of March. Then activities may commence when the award letter is fully executed, which means both parties have signed. That'll be April 3rd and onward. And I think we'll speak to that a little bit because some of the local commissions joining us have their own like board votes that have to happen before they can sign off on any award letter. So we'll speak to that too, because that impacts timeline a little bit. Your first progress report is due July 14th, just as a heads up. And so here's the reporting timeline for progress reports. And as I mentioned, we know that some folks do have sort of their own administrative process with votes or board check-ins, et cetera, due to the fact that they're local governments. So these are the current reporting periods and due dates for the corresponding progress reports. But if this timetable gets pushed back because we're waiting on a board vote, for example, to actually get you to sign off on the award letter to get you funding, we can talk about an updated timeline for folks who are impacted by their own process internally with voting. Just keep us in the loop, please. And then just so you know, statements of expenditure, as we said, are required with each report. And then a template for that and the actual progress report will be provided to everybody well in advance, so you know what the expectations are around reporting. And here's the final page of the application. This is the cost sheet template. So here you'll enter your organization in, the title of your proposal, and then the category of funding box is important over here. This is where we ask if you are a re-granting organization, which means you're turning around and granting to local partners. You're eligible for up to $250,000. You would check that box. If you are not re-granting, the maximum request amount for you would be $100,000 here. So please check that box if that's how you are operating. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the personnel area is where you would delineate these separate line items. So you might have like communications director here, and then the salary that you want to pay them under this project, or the percentage of their time that's being paid for under this grant project. And then you'd have benefits separately. So we don't want to see one lump line item for just staff here, $25,000. We want it to be much more detailed here. And then the remainder of expenses will usually be considered operating expenses. Supplies and materials is one, for example. You'll have those listed out here. So in some cases, for example, if you are printing brochures for outreach for your commission, for example, that would go here. And you don't have to actually have this specific vendor that you're going to use lined up already. We don't need to see that, but we do want to see like what you think the proposed costs will be for it. That'll go here, and any other operating type expenses that you can think of. Then for the folks who are the re-granters, those are the ones who are eligible for up to $250,000. If you're re-granting to local partners, you'll plug that information in here. And again, you don't need to know the name of the local partner yet, but if you're trying to do like community engagement, for example, with local girls, you could do like a community engagement information over here. And then same for consultant services. If you need someone, for example, to design the brochures that you're distributing, you could have brochure designer here. And we don't need to know the exact name of who it's going to be yet. You might not have figured that out yet, but this is the area where you would plug that information in. And then the last area is indirect cost, or some refer to it as overhead. But here we'll want to know if you are not proposing any indirect costs tacked onto your proposal, that's fine. You would just select this box and we would see a 0 over here and a 0 here. But some cases you have a state negotiated rate or a federally negotiated rate. Say it's 17% is what you have established with the feds. Then you would put 17% in here. You would tally your indirect cost total over here, and then your grand total feeds into here. And then in some cases, organizations may not have an approved indirect cost rate, and you might just have something that you're proposing to us. And in that case, you would check this box and plug in the rate that you're proposing. And some folks have commented, this is a PDF, it's not an Excel sheet, so this stuff doesn't total on its own. So you'll have to manually total this for each of the categories and have your grand total down here. Okay, so that's the application. As soon as, let's see, let me pull this back up. And one more thing that we wanted to talk about in terms of filling out the application, and in particular the cost sheet section, is our ongoing list of ineligible costs. This will be incorporated into the FAQs that are housed online, and I'll show you where that is during this presentation. But this is an ongoing list of ineligible costs, and I just wanted to highlight, because this is different from last year. I'll just read these out loud. Tuition is considered an ineligible cost. We had questions on this. So this means like we're not sending your operations manager to UC Davis for their bachelor's degree. That's not covered. That's ineligible. But some folks consider tuition to be sending like a cohort of the folks that they are assisting on the ground, providing, you know, tuition costs for them to attend some sort of like vocational program through your organization. That's allowable. So there's a distinction in that tuition. And again, if you run into questions or you have sort of a nuanced question about your particular organization, reach out to us because we're happy to answer questions for you on that. Food, beverage, and corkage fees for events are not considered eligible costs under this grant, but that is with the caveat that like food banks and community distribution centers, etc., those are eligible. So we just wanted to create the distinction for those. Lobbying is not eligible. Costs already billed directly. Travel costs outside of state rates or travel costs to banned states. We have a list of states that are currently banned. So if you have questions on what's included in that, just reach out to us, and also per diems. Overtime, equipment not specifically needed for the project, deductibles for insurance, audit costs, those are not eligible. Legal fees are not eligible. Now that's also another thing that we got a lot of questions on. So when we're talking about legal fees here, we're talking about like for your organization, if you are in some sort of legal jeopardy and you're hiring an attorney to like remedy the situation, or you're doing like a contract litigation or something like that, that's not eligible under this. But we do have organizations who have like staff attorneys, for example, who are providing legal services to domestic violence survivors. That, of course, is eligible under this grant and in line with the mission of what we're trying to accomplish. Other ineligible costs are depreciation or use allowances for buildings and equipment, licensing, bank fees, advance payments, contingencies, appearance fees or speaking engagements, and insurance costs. And insurance costs, for example, is like a direct bill for your building's liability insurance. We won't pay the insurance company for that. But a lot of organizations do have insurance and benefits and stuff wrapped into overhead, and that's allowable. We're just not paying direct insurance costs. And if you have questions again on any of us, let us know. We're happy to answer what's eligible or not. Okay, so once you have your application completely filled out and all the information saved in there, the only thing that you need to do this year is email it in to localcommissions@women.ca.gov. That will just be an email attachment where there's nothing happening with the Google Drive this year. Some folks may have been used to that dynamic last year, but we're just doing emails this year. So you'll attach this application, you'll send it in, and then this is an example of the auto reply that you'll get. So it's just a confirmation that your application was successfully submitted to us. This should not be construed as an award or that you can start activities, nothing like that. It's just a notification that you successfully sent your app into us. And a reminder over here for submission requirements. All applications are due by 4 p.m. on the 17th, no later. Please submit your application itself to localcommissions@women.ca.gov. And if you have questions on how to fill out the app, for our renewal guide, returning organizations, like if you had questions on progress reports from the last cycle, whatever it is, please email that information, that inquiry to grants@women.ca.gov. Right, and then Tiffany is going to speak to our scoring process. Let me make sure you're unmuted. Okay, you should be unmuted, Tiffany, I hope.
Thank you, Jen. Perfect, thank you so much. So on the scoring process for everybody, I just want you guys to take a look, and I think this will be on the next slide, but I will go over this. For the scoring process, we are taking a look at all applicants. So it's our team that's going to cover local commissions, renewals, and then new grantees. The final scores of each type of application are all ranked. The proposals evaluated numerically, so no notes are taken. The grant review process and rating sheet is housed on our website. We also may be able to throw that in the chat for you as well, but it's just a general idea of what we're looking for when we're scoring. So it's tentative. It's used only to determine your eligibility for this funding opportunity, and they can be changed at any time by commission staff. Priority for funding will be based on consideration of your overall impact of the submitted grants that have been proposed, your geographic distribution, and availability of funds and gaps in needs and services. I do want to stress for you all as local commissions that at our last commission meeting, a couple of our commissioners really had a deep dive question for us on what this looks like for our commission in areas that were not touched. So I'm just looking at another screen, forgive me, for a map that we proposed to our commissioners that had areas that weren't touched. And I'd be happy to cover all of this with you all individually. But some areas that were not touched when we're talking about geographic distribution for the funding was Modoc County, Lassen County, Plumas County, Tehama County, Colusa County, Alpine, Calaveras, Amador, Mariposa, Inyo, Imperial, and Mono. So that's quite a few areas that we considered like gray, where these areas weren't really touched. So if you're a local commission that's bordering these areas, if you're like in Siskiyou or Shasta, and you can reach out to Modoc or Lassen where these areas are really in need of resources, that would be great. And so some priority funding will be touched for those of you who are reaching out to areas who are not able to be touched. And we did hear from quite a few folks, areas that just don't have the services. So it'd be nice to see you all broadening the net and capturing areas that are not being serviced or underserved. That's a little bit about our scoring process. And I'm happy to, again, reach out to us if you guys wanted to hear that list again. I'll probably plug it in the chat when Stephen's talking on the areas. So I'll make sure I hit that for you guys. The areas that are not touched as far as having any local commissions or resources. That's the scoring process. Next slide, please. So the rating sheet. On the rating sheet, again, this is what's used by the staff as the scoring team to determine your funding award. So this is informational purposes only. So on here, we're taking a look at 5 items on our scoring rubric to cover your goal alignment, priority issues, geographic distribution, overall impact, and budget efficiency. So here on the goal alignment, we're looking for those of you who can improve the lives of California's women and girls who are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 and a need for intentional intervention. So it'd be great for you all when you're writing this to really think about what the impact is you're trying to have on your community and how it ties into the work that we are doing. The priority issues here your proposal should demonstrate how the fund supports your ability to deliver outcomes to women and girls and one or more of the following areas. So it doesn't have to be all, it does not necessarily have to be one, but if you could really detail for us how your organization can improve access and affordability of child care and elder care. We use those 2 as a basis because these are the 2 that we see that's really hit hard. So when programs get cut, children's programming gets cut, women aren't able to go back to work and complete their life if they have no child care that's accessible to them and or affordable. Elder care as well is one of these that we haven't seen many proposals on elder care, so we're looking to see what those proposals will look like during this cycle. And increased utilization and uptake of a safety net program that's offered services to support basic needs such as shelter, food, and clothing. Prior, I think in another session, somebody asked about mental health care services, and that's on this list as well, even those that filled out. So mental health is also a necessity for an uptake in safety net. Achieved reskilling and upskilling through accreditation, certification, vocational and educational programs. So how far you are able to achieve your program in upskilling women through programming that you have. Is there a certification program? Is there a vocational program to help women get back on their feet, or any educational programs that help them further themselves to be able to contribute to society? Enhance financial ability to grow economic security, assets, and wealth building. So here are like the 4 priority issues listed here for you guys to take a look at and how you align your work with this grant funding opportunity. Geographic distribution, your proposal should describe your geographic service area, your needs and characteristics of women and girls that are identified in your community. So each community, as you guys all know, is very different. I'm going to use San Diego as my example. San Diego, very huge. I think there's 17 counties within San Diego, and there's some areas that are drastically different, right? From San Marcos to Temecula, very different. And so that's why we did the map for our commissioners to take a look at what we saw in the last grant funding cycle where some areas just were not hit. So if you can describe for us very eloquently what this is like, what are the needs for the women that are in your community? So we do have a checklist that Jen went through that you can tag on to. Is it BIPOC? Is it Native women? Is it LGBTQIA+? You know, what is the characteristic of the women who are hurting in your community? Your overall impact. So this is to the degree that your proposal provides an intervention and implemented in order to achieve and measure desired results. So what is your plan to go in here with this funding for the community? What does that look like as an intervention? Are you intervening to stop something to be able to spread great wealth? Are you assisting maybe food distribution? What are you doing in your area to achieve measured results? That could be done by key performance indicators. Some of you can use that as a feature for yourself to really measure your success, because you also have to tell us a story, right, on the positive, efforts that you have made here in the community. We will also be taking a look at that in your progress report. Your budget efficiency. This is your proposal that's going to outline your objectives and your activities in a most budget efficient manner. So as Jen mentioned before, making sure, I think she's going to cover this later, there should be very detailed information on your operating costs. If you're going to do capacity building, I just want to say for those of you for local commissions, the capacity building was huge last year. So that came up in our commission meetings about what was the number one funding category that commissions use, and it was capacity building. So that tells a story all in itself. It's very difficult, where you already are, to even build a team. You don't have enough staff, so you're really looking forward to building your team. And while we think that's wonderful, and you guys can't do the work alone. And coming from this commission where it was like me and 3 people when we started, it's great to see the growth and more help and more hands-on. Thank you to my colleagues here today. But you really need to make sure you're outlining what you're going to spend your dollars on. So that will be a total on the bottom for you guys to add that total on how you plan to marry what you're going to do with the budget. And those have to be very detailed. That's a little bit about the rating sheet. Again, we'll have that up for you guys just as a little informational item for you only as you're thinking about where you're going to stay in your proposal. Next slide, please. So required documents. This is going to hand this over to Stephen. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Jen. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully everyone's Monday is going well. So on this slide, we're going to talk about the required documents. So once an organization is selected for funding, CCSWG will require additional documentation from applicants to finalize the grant award, and that will allow us to be able to process the payment for this organization. So since these are local commissions, it's a little bit different from other organizations. So the first form we're going to talk about is the Payee Data Record Form, or the STD Form 205. Now this form is used for local governments, or if the remnant's addresses or additional authorized representatives from the STD Form 204 need to be modified. So again, since on this call, it's all local commissions. The local commissions do not need to fill out an STD Form 204. It is just the STD Form 205. So it does have a mailing address, remnant's address, all that good stuff. And then we will need to get that signed. The next form we're going to talk about is the Government Agency Taxpayer ID form. So this is strictly for local governments. And then this allows us to retrieve the tax ID number from that government entity. So along with the STD 205 form, we will also need that Government Agency Taxpayer ID form along with that as well. The next document we will discuss is the award letter. Now this document is states that, legally, that grant funds to the awarded applicant and is not valid until the awarded applicant, including the legal applicant and the sponsored organization, if applicable, and CCSWG have signed. So the award letter is the contract between the state and CCSWG and the local government or organization. So we will need that signed by all parties before the organization can start working towards the funding or using the funding towards their project. One thing we do like to say is when an organization does receive this award letter, or if a local commission receives it, please make sure to read through thoroughly. And if you do have any questions about it, please do not hesitate to reach out to us to set up a meeting so then we can go over those questions and concerns if you do have any. The last one we are going to talk about is the acknowledgement of work commencement authorization. Now, this is a little bit different. Our last funding for last year, we did not have this. This certifies that any work under the awarded grant will not commence until the award letter is fully executed by both the awarded applicant and CCSWG. So these will actually be sent out before the award letter to an organization or local commission, and we will need that signed and returned back. And again, that's just saying that the organization or local commission adheres to not using the funds until that award letter is signed by all parties. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. All right, so these are just a couple of screenshots of what the forms look like. So the one on the left is the STD 205 form. So you'll see, and again, it's a little bit small here, but you'll see that there's a name. If there is a different business name, DBA, that can be put. But again, this can be for local commission, so it's most likely going to be a county or city. And then a remnant's address will be placed in the additional address information, and then we do have a contact section, and then after that we will need a signature. One thing we do like to say is if we can have these forms signed via Adobe signature, that would be great, or Adobe digital signature. We do have issues when they are signed digitally other ways. So again, if you do not have Adobe, they do have Adobe free readers that you can download and then sign via that way. It just makes the process easier and more streamlined for us. The document on the right is the government agency taxpayer ID form, or also known as the TIN form. So this is the form where we will retrieve that taxpayer ID for the local commission. This is strictly used for local commissions and government entities, and this will allow us to retrieve that. So then we are able to proceed to send funds to the local commission. One thing I will say, we do not administer the pay warrants or the checks. That is administered by the state controller's office, and it is via check. We do not do direct deposit, ACH. We don't do anything like that. It's always going to be via check. So sometimes there are delays with that. So just keep a note of that, which we will talk about on this next slide. Thank you. And I'm sorry. So let me cover these last required documents real quick, and then we'll talk about as far as some quick dates that we're going to need to go over. So on the left, the 2 pages on the left are your award letter. So on this award letter, again, we do highly recommend that the local commission or organization goes over each point. If there are any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out and we can go over those with you. You will see on that second page, there is a place where we need the legal applicant to sign, date, and one thing we also need is the remnant's address placed. Sometimes some of the organizations forget. We do need that signed to be able to have this document processed and the payment processed. So we need to make sure that also matches up with your documentation. So if anything is different, we will make sure to reach back out to you and then get that processed correctly. Once all parties have signed and it's good to go, we will make sure to send this back to the organization or local commission so you can have that for your records. And again, if there's any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out. The last document on this screen is the acknowledgement of work commencement authorization disclaimer. So again, this one we did not have last year, but we do have this year. It will be sent out prior to the award letter being sent out. And that's just stating again that work will not be started until that award letter is signed by all parties. Because again, that award letter is the contract between the state, CCSWG, and also the local commission or organization. All right, next slide. Thank you. Okay, so this is important. So this is what I was going to talk about as far as the timeliness of required documents. So due to year-end fiscal reconciliation requirements, failure to sign and return any required documents, including the award letter, within 3 business days of receipt will result in a forfeiture of this grant opportunity. We do want that strict time guideline just because of the requirements for the year-end fiscal reconciliation. We did run into issues last year, so we want to make sure that we are staying on top of the paperwork and that the paperwork is being filled out on your side and our side swiftly, so then we can get these pay warrants paid out and processed. Again, life happens, so if something does arise and something happens where you're like the 3 days, I don't know if we can do it, just reach out to us. We'll work with you, talk to us. Life happens, we know that. So sometimes people are out, so we'll just make sure to just reach out to us, work with us, and we'll make sure we'll get to understanding of when we can get these letters and documents signed. And then please be advised, there may be a delay between when the award letter is fully executed and when your organization receives funds. Again, there's a process with as far as the funding being processed, sent out. We do work with the state controller's office, so there might be a delay. So again, please be patient with us, and we do thank you for working with us. So again, just if you do have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. All right, thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, so we just wanted to give you guys also a snapshot of the timeline of activities that you can expect over this next grant cycle. So here we are in February with our last training for local commissions. Friendly reminder, 4 p.m. on February 17th, applications are due. Then awardees will be selected and notified March 17th through the 24th. Final grant awards will be announced April 3rd. And then grant activities can commence as soon as the award letter is executed by both parties. July 14th is the first quarter progress report. Grant activities will continue. The second quarter progress report will be due October 13th. Then grant activities will continue. Then in the next calendar year, 2024, January 12th, have the third progress report due. Grant activities will wrap up by March 31st. And then our final report, we give you a little bit of a buffer, but then the final report will be due to us April 12th of 2024. And just something to note on progress reports and expenditures, we will be sending out progress report and expenditure templates well in advance of the first due date. So you'll know what to expect, how to fill it out, etc. That won't come as a surprise to anyone when those are due. And then we wanted to loop everyone in. We're currently in the procurement process for a new grants management platform. So that should be rolling out in the coming months. And we're thinking that progress reports will be integrated into that system once it becomes available. So we'll make sure all of our grantees are noticed that the system is up and running. And then we will conduct a series of trainings for those needing assistance, just so you can familiarize yourself with the new system. Nothing special is required on your end for that new system, by the way. And then this last point, applies to progress reports and then also just general contact information. We understand that staff changes, new directors come in, staff shifts around and etc. In a lot of cases, the only email contact we have from folks is from their application, like their first application that was submitted over a year and a half or something ago. So if anything changes, like you have a new info inbox or something where you want all of the correspondence to go to, please make sure you email that information to us at grants@women.ca.gov, so we have all of the information to get a hold of you if we need to. Again, grants@women.ca.gov. Lastly, I think we've been trying to screen the questions that are coming in through the chat if they're general enough. We have a current list of FAQs it's a compilation of this grant cycle and last cycle that will be updated on a routine basis. So that's on our grants landing page. If you scroll down just below the applications, it'll be housed there. And we will update that on a routine basis. You'll see the revision date at the bottom of the document. So just check there to see if it's a new document or not. This is also where the rating sheet is housed, by the way. On the right-hand side, you can review that as well, the one that Tiffany spoke to earlier. All right, and I'll turn this over to Tiffany for the final comments on this.
Thank you, Jen. So everyone, I hope this was thorough. There's only like 7 or 8 of you guys here today, so spread the word if you can. If we're unable to answer your question, you guys have some great questions. Hopefully we're able to answer them. If you have more questions that pertain to your particular commission, please email the grants@women.ca.gov inbox. Your separate inbox is for you to submit your application at local commissions, and that's available on our website as well. This recording will be made available a little bit later today or early in the morning. If you go back and take a look at all the information that we provided for you today, we wish you the best of luck in this application process. And if you have any questions, again, please feel free to reach out to us and we will get right back to you. So give you some of your day back and have a great, happy Monday. Thanks, everybody.